Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So this morning I'm going to do a couple of live streams, and I hope that you all can join these live streams. If not, you can check them out later. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes for people to join before I get started. Again, I want to remind people to follow me on Twitter at New Poss Blog. Also, I want to encourage you to follow me on Facebook at New Possibilities. And I encourage you all to like our book club page, Reading as Activism. It's on Facebook. You can find it there. And I will try to post a link in the description box so that you can find the page and join our discussion. Our next book will be Blacktop Wasteland by S.A. Cosby. S.A. Cosby. So I encourage you all to check out that link. I'll post that after this video upload so that you all can join the book club and discuss books with us. Shout out to John Pro. Thanks for tuning in. So there are a couple of things that I want to talk about this morning. The first involves the Trump administration, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and read a couple of excerpts from this article and then add my commentary. And I'm really interested in hearing from you all, like, what do you all think about this particular issue? So let me share my screen. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. This is an article that I saw on the Huffington Post, and it's about how the White House is ending so-called un-American racial sensitivity training at federal agencies. So it says that the Trump administration has issued a memo ordering federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training, declaring it un-American propaganda. And that's according to an article in the Washington Post. And also, I have a copy of this memo that they're referring to, and I will show it to you. And I may read a couple of excerpts from the actual memo. So it says that a two-page, let me get rid of this real quick. It says a two-page memo released Friday notes that President Trump seeks to prevent federal agencies from spending millions in taxpayer dollars on the training sessions, that any contract involving instruction on white privilege or critical race theory be canceled immediately if possible. You know, the article says, it goes on to talk about what the memo says in further detail. It says the president has directed me to ensure that federal agencies cease and desist from using taxpayer dollars to fund these divisive un-American propaganda training sessions. It says that the memo says that trainings that mention white privilege or asserting that racism is a part of the country's foundation engender division and resentment and undercut the federal government's core values. And so that's some of the key highlights from the memo. And then on top of saying all this stuff about, racial sensitivity training and it being un-American and all that kind of stuff and against core values, in the actual memo, and I'm going to show you the memo, they try to cover themselves by saying that the president is against racism and all that kind of stuff. So let me read that section of the memo. And that's just like a catch-all to protect them from charges of racism. It says the president has a proven track record of standing for those voices who have long been ignored and who have failed to benefit from all our country has to offer. He intends to continue to support all Americans regardless of race, religion, or creed. And then it goes on to say the divisive, false, and demeaning propaganda of the critical race theory movement is contrary to all we stand for as Americans. It should have no place in federal government. So let me stop sharing my screen. The links to all these articles and links are going to be in the description box so that you can actually read them for yourself and judge them for yourself. But, basically, this is another example of the Trump administration's hostility to civil rights. I've cited example after example in many of these videos, and this is yet another example. Here you have and cultural sensitivity training, and the president is attacking that. And the reason why he's attacking it is because it's election time, and he wants to pander to his base. His base um, is a lot of people that are on the far right, a lot of people who are actually just outright racist. He's pandered to the alt-right, to the Nazis, and to all these other groups. And it's no coincidence that these organizations and stuff support Donald Trump. They support his xenophobic, hateful, anti-immigrant rhetoric, which, when you boil it down to its core, is nothing but white supremacist type of positioning. A lot of the anti-immigrant sentiment is rooted in this idea that that there's a browning of America. It's rooted in this fear of so-called white genocide. And then you have this situation where you have cultural sensitivity training in federal agencies so that they can be conscious of the racism that exists in this society, so that they can be conscious of their own individual biases and stuff like that. And you have Donald Trump trying to undermine that training, trying to eliminate it. And it's like, I just wonder, like, how many more examples do people need to see before they realize just how racist this Trump administration is, or at the very least, how insensitive they are to the concerns of African Americans and other minorities in this country. I mean, you have this example, not too long ago, I did another video about the Attorney General basically saying that systemic racism is not a problem in this society, basically making excuses for police brutality and racial profiling. I don't know how many more examples that people need to finally realize just how racist and how insidious this Trump administration is. And this is just yet another reminder of how important these elections are. While people are debating, whether or not Kamala Harris is Black enough, you have this Trump administration that is openly hostile to our interests. You have this example cutting this racial sensitivity training. And this is important because, these federal agencies, a lot of them are law enforcement agencies. A lot of them are agencies that deal with our civil and human rights. And he's trying to cut this training that's critical, that's very important in order to help address the problem of racism within these institutions. And then you have him, the example of them making it seem as if police brutality is not a real issue, that there is no systemic problem of racism in police departments. You have the example of Donald Trump in this voter suppression, setting up a sham voter fraud commission that was designed to do nothing but suppress voters. And then you have the current example of President Trump basically trying to defund the post office and, take away mailboxes and remove mail sorting machines at a time when he knows that we are going to be dependent on the postal service to mail off ballots, to send the ballots to the boards of elections for processing. So it's not another example of voter suppression. And then you look at the example of how this Trump administration has used the Justice Department to attack affirmative action, a program designed to increase educational opportunities for African Americans and other so-called minorities. So you have those examples. You have him openly saying that he doesn't support these consent decrees designed to create change within these police departments. So it's like you have this open hostility, and now he's using this recent order to just gin up his white supremacist racist base. And you got people wasting time talking about whether or not Kamala Harris is Black enough. You have people actually trying to make it seem as if these parties are one and the same. When you have one party that's openly attacking your civil and human rights, making it clear that their top priority is, ginning up fear and all that kind of stuff. And at a time when Black people are being subjected to police brutality, you have Donald Trump not meeting with families and stuff like that when he traveled to Kenosha. He didn't meet with Jacob Blake's family and anything like that. Instead, he's meeting with law enforcement. Instead, he's celebrating law enforcement. Instead of supporting the movement, demanding justice and fighting against police brutality, calling on people to recognize that Black Lives Matter, this administration is labeling that movement as a hate movement, as a terrorist movement, and all that kind of stuff. It should be clear, just based on these basic things, who is more hostile to our interests, when you compare the choices. But yeah, I just wanted to bring this story to your attention. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And I'm just going to read a couple of your comments before I come back with my next live stream on here. So let me read Rob's statement. And again, shout out to John Pro. Good morning, everyone. So Rob says, progressives and ADOS Black Agenda policy voters know that Trump is a bad president, but they want their policy concerns addressed by Biden and Harris. And I understand that. I understand that our policy concerns have to be addressed by them. And we should press for all politicians to address our concerns. But it's like you have people on here that pretend like there hasn't been any kind of effort on the part of Democrats to address Black concerns. And that's just a complete falsehood. You also have people on here pretending like the Democrats and the Republicans are one and the same, that they have the same agenda. When it's a night and day difference when you look at the platforms of these parties, when you look at the records of the people that are running against each other, it's a clear and obvious difference. And I've done it before, like I've explained fully before in prior videos about, Donald Trump's track record on race. I've touched on some things in this particular video. And this is just the latest example of him proving just how hostile he is to our interests. So I understand people pressing these other, the Democrats to make sure that they adhere to our agenda. And we should do that with any candidate, but let's not pretend like they're one and the same. Let's not pretend like Donald Trump and Joe Biden are equal footing and they're both just as dangerous to our interests, because it's just an exaggeration. When you look at these constant examples of Donald Trump's obvious and blatant hostility, and it's just like we get caught up in things that really, at the end of the day, don't matter as much. Like these extensive debates about whether or not Kamala Harris is Black. People are fixated on her identity as opposed to dealing with the actual policies that her and Biden stand for compared to the policies of Donald Trump. Because at the end of the day, one of those parties are going to win. It's either going to be Donald Trump or Joe Biden. And when you look at the policies of the two parties, it's just no comparison. For instance, a lot of people say, well, Biden doesn't have anything addressing a Black agenda. But when you go to his website, you see that he has an agenda for the Black community. And it's not just up to him to present something. It's up to us to make demands of these politicians to push our interests. And we have shown our influence. Like, there were people that were demanding that Joe Biden nominate an African-American woman, a Black woman, to be vice president. And because of that pressure, that's exactly what he did. You had people like Diddy and others saying, well, our vote isn't just for free. You got to present us with an agenda that addresses the concerns of our people. And, Joe Biden has done just that. He's presenting an agenda. It's on his website. And I'll post a link to that as well so that people can look at that. And I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that that agenda is comprehensive, that it addresses, I mean, I'm not saying that it addresses every single issue that our community has. I'm not saying it is even complete. What I'm saying it is far better than anything that Donald Trump has presented or offered. And if we want to make that agenda more complete, we still need to press Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on these issues. So yeah, I just wanted to bring this information to you. I'll be back up with a couple of other quick live streams. So with that, I want to encourage you to please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here. Peace and blessings, everyone. Have a great morning.